Right now, the National Weather Desk, historic snowstorm. Records fall across the Gulf Coast and Southeast as snow blankets cities from Texas to the Carolinas. Our team is following the flakes across the region.
The downtown Charleston area is just unrecognizable this morning.
All of this snow instead of sand that leads up to it. Really an amazing sight.
We'll take a closer look at some of the eye-opening snow totals.
Take a look at some historic snow totals because they're indeed happening.
And the creativity some folks use to clear the snow. Also, the salt we use to melt snow and ice sticks around longer than you think.
But it does have implications for our environment.
And why it's so important to maintain your HVAC system during these cold months.
Clean filter means more airflow, which means that air can get to different areas of the home.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Good morning and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm Angela Brown. The record-breaking winter storm that blanketed cities across Texas and the Gulf Coast is now over the Carolinas, and for a second straight day, cities that have not seen snow in decades are getting it. This is the airport in Jacksonville, Florida. All flights have been canceled until this afternoon because of snow and ice. Schools and government offices across the South also closed. The city struggled to clear the roads and make them safe for drivers as well. Some of the biggest snow totals yesterday were in the cities along the Gulf Coast. That's where a first of its kind blizzard warning was issued. Beaumont and southeast Texas was under that warning. Up to 6 inches fell in the region, but the snow will start melting today as temperatures rise into the low 40s. And now moving east, we arrive in New Orleans. More than 9 inches of snow fell in the Big Easy. That shattered the one-day record of just 2.7 inches set back in 1963. 5 inches of snow fell in Biloxi, Mississippi. That led to a number of accidents on the roads because there were just not enough crews to keep that snow and ice off the pavement. Mobile, Alabama also set a record with more than 7 inches of snow on the ground. That breaks a 130-year-old record of 6 inches set back in 1895. Even Pensacola, Florida saw snow falling at rates of 1 to 3 inches per hour. When it finally stopped last night, more than 7.5 inches was on the ground. That's the most snow ever recorded in the state of Florida. This morning, the storm has moved to the southeast coast, impacting cities in the Carolinas. We'll check in on them in just a moment, but first we turn to meteorologist Christina Ernie for the forecast.
Good morning. Historic snowfall is still falling today from Florida to Georgia up through Cape Hatteras currently. And although it's moving offshore today, this rare system is actually bringing light accumulations, including freezing rain and ice, through mid-afternoon today along the coastline of North and South Carolina. Now, there is still the potential for some light snow accumulations in some of these spots, especially at the immediate coastline. But some could see up to half an inch to maybe up to an inch. Cold temperatures, though, sustaining the snow risk. And now many areas of the south, southeast, and beyond face bitter cold. Actually, a significant chunk of the country is currently under extreme cold warnings and cold weather advisories, meaning temperatures well colder than normal. Highs today is actually from Houston through New Orleans and Atlanta in the 40s, and some in the Midwest and Northeast, 20s and 30s. For the National Weather Desk, I'm meteorologist Christina Ernie.
And we once again have team coverage of this historic winter storm. We start with Conley Grayson in Charleston, South Carolina.
The downtown Charleston area is just unrecognizable this morning, truly looking like a snow globe. This park is usually a very picturesque moment for many tourists, but this morning just blanketed with that ice and snow, very different looking. Looking at the ground, you can see all this accumulation. It truly is packed in everywhere you go on every single street. You can see that sleet is actually coming down pretty hard again. We had a small break this morning. It's starting to come down more, which means we're going to have more on the ground. Look at this behind me. You can see that fountain just covered with ice. Icicles surrounding it.
Yes, it is so beautiful out here. Snow on the beach. Look at this. Freshly fallen snow, no footprints. It's pretty quiet out here, so it really is so beautiful. Our, of course, amazing ocean back here, and then all of this snow instead of sand that leads up to it. Really an amazing sight. Us South Carolinians who rarely get to see snow, this is such an exciting event. I'm sure as the kids are waking up, if they're off school, they get to come out and play in the snow.
It is cold. I cannot feel my toes. I'm holding on to my fingertips and it's freezing. And so for those looking to come outside and enjoy some of this, let's see, fluffy winter snow, please bundle up. Layers on layers on layers is all I can say. The girl has on probably 2 to 3 jackets, 2 to 3 pairs of pants, and that's exactly what you need to do for you and your kids to stay warm as you enjoy this beautiful snow. When you think of Morehead City, you think of waves, you think of 98-degree weather, you think of sunshine. It's the complete opposite today, okay?
Well, the frigid weather really made its presence known in central Texas. Snow fell in areas not used to dealing with winter weather. Schools in Austin were closed and drivers were warned to stay off the roads. A major concern was power outages, with residents thinking about the repeat of that 2021-2023 when winter storms led to all those major blackouts. But as Adela Uchida reports, this round of winter weather came and went with much less of an impact.
This is a live picture of what's happening on southbound I-35.
In the wee hours of the morning before the sun rose over a wintry central Texas, it was clear the roads were very, very slippery. CBS Austin's Fred Cantu showed us this van towing a trailer that had somehow collided with a pickup truck as winter precipitation fell.
Unless you have a necessary reason to leave the house, don't get on the roadways. If you do have a purpose for leaving the house and you do need to get on the roadways, be extraordinarily cautious.
No news was good news for Central Texas after feeling battered by the power outages of 2021 and 2023. Both ERCOT and Austin Energy were running smoothly even as temperatures dipped below freezing. Matt Mitchell is the spokesman for Austin Energy.
It's really the kind of news that we want to wake up to, and I know everyone wants to hear. We've got crews on standby, and we've been tracking this winter blast for several weeks.
Since snow is still an unusual event for Austinites, there was some good old fun to be had.
When you've got lemons, you gotta make lemonade.
It's not every day you can make snow angels in Austin.
We just gotta live in the moment.
For many places along the Gulf Coast, snow is a rare sight, as you just saw. Meteorologist Evan Chikvera looks at the numbers to see what cities top their record snowfall totals.
We'll start with New Orleans. This goes back to 1948. December 31st of 63 was the most snow that they received, 2.7 inches, and the least on the top three. 1973, 6/10 of an inch, easily going to surpass that. How about Mobile? Number one, I was actually surprised by this. They have a couple high snowfall totals. You got to go back to 1881 and 1895 to find totals of 4 and 5 inches, so probably not setting any records there. In Pensacola, how about this? March 6th of 1954, 2.3 inches. Got to go back to the 1800s for 2 inches. 1895 for 2 inches. You get the idea. Does not happen very often. How about over in Dothan, Alabama? February 12th of 2010, 2 inches. Well, the top three are all the same. 2 inches, that includes the 93 storm. And then January 31st of 1977. And oh, by the way, this one's just for fun. We're talking about the totals in Panama City. February 10th, 1973, the only day of record that they've had any amount of snowfall.
Well, the National Weather Service now says nearly 40% of the country is now covered by snow. That's up from 26% last month. The average is just under 3 inches. One place that is lacking snow is the Plains, but there is snow cover in the far north and parts of Kansas, but that's really about it. The bitter cold up north is adding to the ice cover on the Great Lakes. This is southern Lake Michigan. Overall, 20% of the lake is covered by ice. Lake Erie is 58% ice covered, the most of all the Great Lakes. Lake Huron has 26% ice cover. Lake Superior, the largest and deepest Great Lake, is just 9.5% ice covered, and Lake Ontario, with just 7% ice cover, has the least of all the Great Lakes. And check out this right here, this video. It shows people ice boating on a pond on Block Island. That's about 9 miles off the coast of Rhode Island. The sub-freezing temperatures gave folks there a really good chance to enjoy some winter sports right there on the ice. And with temperatures expected to stay below 32 degrees until next week, it appears ice boating will continue for at least a few more days as well. And coming up on the National Weather Desk, when snow hits, salt is one of the most crucial tools we have to make streets and sidewalks safe. We'll look at how that salt impacts the environment, plus tips on making sure you're getting the most out of your home's heater.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
Well, we are about to settle into the coldest part of winter, which means it's key to keep your home heating system up and running. Andrew Klein spoke to an HVAC expert to learn more.
If you feel like your thermostat and the house temperature is lower than it should be, as long as your vents are blowing heat, as long as the radiators are still hot, let it go a little bit, and the next day it'll probably be fine.
With the temperatures continuing to drop during the winter, it's important to maintain your home's heating system.
I'm very lucky that we have a service contract that allows us to get those issues maintained on a regular schedule. So usually we have the furnace serviced every fall, and then we have the air conditioner serviced every spring, and I really feel like that's helped extend the life of our system.
Some of the easiest things you can do are maintaining a constant temperature in your home and making sure your air filters are clean with regular maintenance checks from HVAC companies.
Make sure your filter's clean. Filters can last anywhere from a month to a year depending on what you have. Look at the recommendation on the filter, how long it should last. Clean filter means more airflow, which means that air can get to different areas of the home.
And of course, be smart with how you heat your home.
You know, you definitely want to use your thermostat wisely, so you don't want to have these big swings where you're bumping the temperature up 10 degrees. That allows your system to kind of maintain at a constant rate.
But whatever you do, don't be a hero.
We don't want customers taking doors off and everything, but look over the furnace and see if there's any type of blinking light or anything. If there is, that's a big indicator of the problem.
When snow hits, salt is one of the most crucial tools we have to make streets and sidewalks safe. But there's a good chance you're using too much of it and that salt sticks around longer than you may think. Meteorologist Phil DeCastro has more.
We're not advocating for no salt.
That's Shannon Hayden, the stormwater section manager for the Wisconsin DNR. She says that what many people don't realize is that once the salt enters our environment, there's no energy or cost-effective way of removing it. That's why using salt in the winter is a delicate balancing act.
We understand it is really the most effective thing that we can use for managing ice and, preventing accidents, whether it's with our vehicle or, just walking. But it does have implications for our environment.
Basically, our local ecosystem would eventually collapse if the salinity rises too much. Green Bay Director of Public Works Steve Grenier says new practices in just the last 15 years have made big differences.
30% less, and that's simply because of the pre-wetting and the brine utilization. It's a huge number, huge number.
And around your house, there are a couple strategies for reducing your own salt use.
One of the simplest ways to reduce how much salt you're using in the winter is to not have to use as much in the first place, being proactive about sweeping and shoveling so that there's less snow and ice to clear. And the other thing is that you're probably using too much salt as it is. Just the salt that can fit in this cup, just 12 ounces, is enough to treat 10 squares of sidewalk, that whole distance that I just walked.
Scientists say Mount Everest has been growing ever so slightly over the years. The centuries of movement by rivers and erosion has caused the terrain to lift the mountain up. Scott Thuman took a trip to the iconic location to learn what it's like to trek the highest mountain range in the world.
Our guide Ganga navigating us over one ridge after another until we arrived in the shadow of the legendary peak Ama Dablam. We met Lapka, famous Sherpa who once led the likes of Prince Charles through these epic passes.
I don't know why a lot of people spend a lot of money and a lot of people come to put their life on risk on mountain.
You think it's crazy?
I think so.
For me, the way to Everest was more than just a bucket list item. I also turned 50 on the trail, and that morning, an unforgettable gift. My first glimpse of what I'd dreamt about for decades, the world's highest peak, all 29,031 feet of it.
There it is.
Everest, top of the world.
Even you're excited to see it.
Yes, this weather. And June. Yes. And a monsoon and a June. On your birthday. Happy birthday.
A testament that I still felt young enough to tackle life, even though a complete summit was not in the cards. This, the deadliest year on record. 18 trekkers and climbers lost their lives. And just 3 weeks later, we learn our helicopter pilot, seen here, talking to me about the conditions.
Yeah, the weather is so bad.
Crashed the same chopper we rode in, killing everyone on board. Back on the trail, we come to the famed Hillary Bridge, not for the weak of heart.
Somewhere around 450 feet, I'm told, above the ground. Rapids below us, windy day, and all of it is awesome.
A couple of days later, another grim reminder of the risks.
Few places can remind you of just how dangerous it is. That Tukla Pass, where we are right now, and as you can see, is just scattered with memorials everywhere you look for climbers who died trying to summit Everest and the surrounding mountains.
It's like representative of all the things that have the lives and spirits here.
Everybody that shared the same passion of climbing these mountains and not worried about giving their lives to do it.
This week on our podcast, Off the Radar, Scott will be sharing the full story of his journey to Everest to discuss how climate change is transforming this iconic trek, making it more dangerous for future climbers. You can find Off the Radar anywhere you get your podcasts. And on this week's installment of Weather Bucket, Columbus meteorologist Andrew Buckmichael answers winter weather questions.
First question coming in from Keith, asking about snow ratio comparisons. It all comes down to the temperature of what that snow is falling through, because the colder it is, the higher the ratio. If you're close to 30, 32 degrees, you'll get maybe a 5-to-1 ratio. So 5 inches of snow would equal 1 inch of rain. On average, you go with about 10 inches of snow for 1 inch of rain. That's temperatures in the 20s. Now, if you are really cold, you can sometimes get 25 to 30-to-1 snowfall ratios. That means 25 inches of snow for just 1 inch of rain. Myrtle asking, what's a polar vortex? It's a great question here. We had the kind of that big push of cold air you may remember back in 2014 as well. When the polar vortex is up around the North Pole, strong polar jet stream keeps it contained to the North Pole. When that weakens sometimes, you get big pushes of cold air to move their way farther south. That's what we're experiencing this January here in central Ohio. Weaker polar jet stream is allowing that colder air at the North Pole to move farther south. The polar vortex is still up in the North Pole, but we get those big pushes of cold blasts of air. Gary, what's the difference between graupel and sleet? Great question. Graupel, you get snow to fall into some super cold water droplets. Basically, you get little tiny water droplets to form on snowflakes, and then it falls back into cold air, and it refreezes into a crunchy little pocket of snow or a little snowball. Sleet, it still falls, but it completely melts that snowflake and then refreezes into those really hard pellets by the time it reaches the ground. Thanks for everyone sending in their weather questions. We're going to deal with another round of your winter weather bucket questions coming up next time.
And time now for a short break, but first let's take flight over Camp Hill, Pennsylvania.
The National Weather Desk.
Well, snowfall can create precarious driving conditions. A Southeast Texas man saw a dicey road in his community and decided to be proactive by making his own snowplow. Erica Harris has the story.
The snow came down fast and furious in Orange County Tuesday morning. Nick Granger knew what was coming ahead of time. Granger, a mechanical design specialist, decided to make a homemade snowplow with a borrowed blade. He attached it to his Kubota tractor.
I actually borrowed the blade from a buddy of mine, and Beaumont Tractor supplied the track that's cut on it and did the fab work right here inside the shop.
The curve near where he lives is the scene of a lot of accidents, and he's trying to prevent that.
It's bad. There's two big curves right here that always have wrecks. When it's dry. So I figured just plow the snow off of them, make them a little safer. I have fun doing it, so I hope the snow's here to stay for at least a couple days.
And looking for more weather content, check us out on social media. You can find us on all your favorite platforms, including Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. Just search the National Weather Desk. We'll be right back.